Part 1. The Origins of the 12-Step Philosophy for Optimal Living. The Author's Journey. Don't walk behind me. I will not lead. Don't walk in front of me. I will not follow. Just walk beside me and be my friend. Anonymous. Torrential rain battered my emaciated body as I lay slumped on the rat-infested railway embankment. Emotionally bankrupt, bereft of meaning, homeless and penniless, I'd resigned myself to a liquid Last Supper. Catching a glimpse of myself in a broken mirror revealed the extent of my deterioration. The 25-year-old former fun-loving entertainer had been replaced by a decrepit old man. Eyes sunken, yellow complexion, jittery and unkempt. Death seemed imminent, almost welcoming. Images of my beloved family flooded my beleaguered mind, intensifying the disabling guilt that dogged me on a daily basis. They couldn't bear it any longer. They asked me to leave the family home to avoid the pain of watching me slowly committing suicide. I reached for the bottle of vodka beside me and hoped the amnesic effects would kick in quickly. I needed to obliterate all traces of reality and retreat into oblivion. I took a swig. My body suddenly arched and went into spasm. I sank into a dark abyss. On coming to, my head felt like home to a swarm of bees. Dazed and confused, I attempted to reorient myself. The stench of sweat and urine filled my nostrils, the after effects of yet another fit. As tears rolled down my cheeks and dissolved into the driving rain, I longed for the return of the happy-go-lucky lad who vanished as my drinking escalated. But all that I could see was the decrepit old man. How had this nightmare started? I was born at the beginning of the 60s in Liverpool. My parents, Stanley and Brenda, held several jobs to keep the roof over our heads and put food on the table. My sister, Barbara, came along 2.5 years later. We were a very close unit. Childhood was quite normal for the inner city. A mixture of fun and fear, close-knit communities, gangs hanging around on street corners, children playing in the streets, and neighbors in and out of each other's houses, sharing, caring, and sometimes squabbling. I became streetwise at a very early age. My clown persona carried me through the nuances of childhood and adolescence. Having the ability to make people laugh proved a valuable asset, enabling me to integrate well with my peers and deflect the wrath of the bullies. During my formative years, my love for animals kept me occupied. The family home was a menagerie. Birds, hamsters, rabbits, dogs, fish, tortoises, terrapins, and frogs accompanied many of the rooms. I had aspirations to become a vet back then. But alas, my dreams were dashed when I realized I couldn't stand the sight of animals in pain. Aged 8, the second love of my life emerged. Music. I became entranced by my dad's guitar. I'd strum the strings and listen with intrigue and fascination. Unlike many children, my interest in the guitar was not a short-term fad. Over the next few years, I practiced relentlessly and became an accomplished guitarist. On reaching my teenage years, a school friend and I formed a duo. Within a year, we were performing at social clubs and community centers. I'll never forget our first gig. The venue was a small social club in close proximity to our house. For some unknown reason, Robbie and I decided to change into our stage outfits at home and walk to the club. Adorned in pink shirts, black bow ties, and violet trousers, we marched past our friend who were playing football on the street corner. I still cringe when I recall the jeers and ridicule we were subjected to. Still, the gig was a great success and proved to be the start of a magical era. Music became my passion. Within a couple of years, the duo expanded into a 5-piece band. Rather than advertise for musicians, Robbie and I decided to invite our friends to join us, none of whom were musicians or vocalists. I took on the arduous task of learning all the instruments: drums, bass guitar, and keyboard. I'd then relay my knowledge to the other band members. It wasn't unusual for me to be up until 3 or 4 in the morning, learning the various parts. Mum would be yelling down the stairs, "Paul, do you know what time it is? You've got school in the morning." But I was oblivious, totally immersed in the magic of my mind. The band was very successful. We traveled the country performing gigs at clubs, private functions, and festivals. The lads bonded like brothers, often fought like them too. I'd arrived, or so I thought, earning money, pursuing my passion, and traveling with friends to exciting places. Not to mention the attention we received from the girls. I was living my dream. Around this time, I was introduced to alcohol. I guess it was bravado at first. At 15, I felt grown up when I drank. However, bravado soon became secondary to the liberating feeling alcohol instilled within me. As soon as I drank, my inhibitions dissolved. An unexplainable edge was put on life. My worries, anxiety, and self-doubt gave way to a wonderful sense of liberation and invincibility. Consequently, the seductive effect started to get a stranglehold very quickly. Within a couple of years, my commitment to the band began to wane in favor of drinking. My irate friends were frequently left awaiting my arrival at rehearsals, whilst I knocked back pints of lager with vodka chasers in the local pub. During one of these bouts, I met a trainee nurse who moonlighted as a barmaid to earn some extra cash. We started dating, and after a year planned to get engaged. Trying to inject some stability back into my life, I renewed my commitment to the band and mended my relationships with the lads. The band traveled down to Birmingham for an audition with an agent, who booked acts to work abroad. The audition went very well. We secured a 3-month contract to perform at the American Army bases in Germany. Around the same time, we also secured a recording contract with a small label here in the northwest of England. Our future looked extremely promising. As the date for the German tour approached, however, I felt torn apart. I wanted to perform at the army bases and spend time with the lads, but I didn't want to leave my girlfriend. After much deliberation and heartache, I pulled out. Sadly, a few months later, the group disbanded, and the tour and recording never materialized. The absence of music in my life began to take its toll. A cavernous void opened up, and I became miserable and restless. The novelty of my relationship had worn off, and my interest was beginning to wane. Life seemed meaningless. Needing an escape route, I turned back to alcohol. Within a very short period, I became prone to unpredictable and irrational behavior, and my girlfriend left. I managed to secure a low-paid job in a garage, driving and cleaning cars. Although I curtailed my drinking during the week, I binge drank at the weekends. Blackouts and brawls ensued, and I was locked up on numerous occasions. Dr. Jekyll was quickly turning into Mr. Hyde. I dreaded the mornings after. I'd wake up full of paranoia and remorse, shaking, sweating, and vomiting, waiting for someone to tell me what I'd done the night before. The border between reality and fiction became vague. I often couldn't distinguish between the things I'd done and the things I'd imagined I'd done. I'd jump out of my skin every time the phone or doorbell rang. My nerves were shot. Aged 18, I lost my driving license for drink driving, and my job in the garage went. Thinking a geographical move would sort me out, I secured a job as a bluecoat in a holiday camp and moved down south. Working from 7:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. the following morning could be draining, but the social arena I worked in meant alcohol was freely available. Drinking was no longer a luxury. It was a necessity. My day started with vomiting, sweating, and shaking, accompanied by severe paranoia. What had I done the night before? Did I insult anyone? Did I embarrass myself? I had absolutely no recollection. Struggling to hold a bottle in my trembling hands, I take a large swig of vodka. Then another. And another. The first few gulps would inevitably come back up, so I'd make sure there was a bowl at hand. When the retching and shaking calmed to a point where I could walk to the bathroom without feeling faint, I'd take the bottle to the shower. A few more gulps of vodka whilst the hot water poured over me, and I started to stabilize. My paranoia would subside as alcohol began to work its magic, and life became an adventure again. On went my blue coat and a smiling face, and off I went to entertain the campers. The summer season ended, and life became a barren wasteland again. Totally meaningless. The void inside became greater than ever, and I drank faster than ever to try and fill it. The following few years saw me deteriorate very quickly. 3 drink driving charges, suspended jail sentences, probation, rehabs, and numerous admissions to hospitals. The latter drink driving offense was serious. Drink driving whilst on a drink driving ban. Prison seemed imminent. Arriving at court, topped up with alcohol, I thoroughly expected to go to prison. However, legal aid provided me with a very talented barrister who pleaded I would lose my career if I was imprisoned. I was due to take an entertainment manager's post that summer. Consequently, my sentence was suspended. On leaving the court, I headed for the nearest off-license, stuck half a bottle of vodka in my pocket, and headed for the nearest pub. The truth is, I was already imprisoned. By this time, my family were distraught. Witnessing the sadness and despair in their eyes crippled me. To relieve the guilt, I drank and drank and drank. I'd sneak bottles of spirits into my bedroom and hide them in readiness to drink throughout the night. Oblivion was now my only goal. But even sleep had ceased to bring respite. I'd shout, scream, and sweat in a drunken stupor as the contents of my disturbed psyche expressed itself as horrific nightmares. The onset of hallucinations saw gargoyle-like faces appearing at my bedroom window. Terrified, I'd flee into my parents' room to get help. They quickly realized what was happening and tried to reason with me. But their attempts were to no avail. The hallucinations were so vivid, I was convinced they were real. During one particularly bad experience, I ran into my sister's bedroom and ordered her to make her way to my parents' room as quickly as possible. "Why?" she inquired, startled. "I've just seen 2 gunmen going into our bathroom," I replied. More frightened of me than the 2 illusory gunmen, she headed for my parents' bedroom. Another night, I hallucinated thieves breaking into my dad's van, which was parked outside our house. I rushed to call the police, only to be cut off by my mother. "They're gonna get away with the van," I ranted. After numerous attempts to reason with me, she backed off, and I called the police. When they arrived, our road was desolate. Not a soul in sight. My mom had a quiet word with the puzzled officers, and they turned to leave. As they returned to their car, I hallucinated heads popping out of the neighbors' paths and shrieked at them to arrest these people. But they left in the knowing that these criminals existed only in the domain of my screwed-up psyche. Things continued to deteriorate drastically. Unable to determine reality from the alcohol-fueled delusions of my warped mind, I became terrified. I pleaded with my doctors to get me help. To this day, I owe him my life. He had me admitted to hospital and rehabs on numerous occasions. Although I would often sign myself out and return to drinking, his faith never waned. On hitting rock bottom, I'd go to any lengths to be admitted into hospital. It was the only place I felt safe. I'd take lethal cocktails of alcohol and painkillers and then tell someone. Although this destructive behavior was a cry for help, not a serious attempt to kill myself, I almost ended my life on 2 occasions. On one occasion, after being rushed to hospital and having my stomach pumped, I was lying in bed, fatigued and paranoid, when an emergency team came hurtling in and inserted numerous drips into various parts of my body. They promptly informed me that a toxic level of painkillers and alcohol remained in my bloodstream. My life was saved only by the swift response and expertise of these people. But did I learn from the experience? Was it enough for me to quit drinking? No. I was to repeat this procedure time and time again. I'd go to any lengths to obtain drink, beg, steal, or borrow. The first possessions I parted with were my guitar, microphone, and other musical equipment. To walk past the local secondhand shop and see them for sale was heartbreaking. But drink was a necessity I couldn't live without. After selling all my possessions, I reverted to theft and deceit. My father was a milkman at the time and used to collect a large sum of money on a Friday night. Although he and my mother selflessly cared for me throughout my withdrawals, tending to my every need as I convulsed and vomited, and although I loved them dearly, one Saturday morning I stole the whole contents of my father's cash bag and fled. When I eventually emerged from that bender, the guilt was unbearable. I hated myself with a vengeance. Finally, I reached bottom. My emaciated body gave the appearance of an old man, though I was still only in my 20s. When I ran out of alcohol, I revert to drinking surgical spirits, methylated spirits, aftershave, and even squirting body deodorants into my mouth, hoping they bring some relief. And so, I ended up on that railway embankment, homeless, penniless, and totally exhausted. Several rats scurrying past, seeking shelter from the driving rain. The faces of my beloved family appearing vividly in my mind. Surely, this was the end of the road? As darkness eclipsed any flicker of hope I had left, something extraordinary happened. Emerging from the depths of my psyche, a loving voice whispered the words, "You weren't born to live this way." Was it another hallucination? Was I schizophrenic? Had I lost it completely? No, none of these explanations rang true. If I suffered from any of these conditions, I wouldn't have had the faculty of reason to challenge them. And I did. That experience proved to be the start of an enlightening and fulfilling journey. Rocky, admittedly, as relapse followed sobriety in cycles, but so worthwhile. Although I stumbled and fell, I no longer viewed relapse as failure. It became a feedback system from which I learned. The wise inner voice remained my companion throughout. If you don't get the results you want, preserve the learning, refine your techniques, and try again. It whispered to me, and I adhered to the advice. This voice I came to know as the archetypal alchemist. My inner friend, mentor, and genius. There is one lying dormant inside you right now. Call on him or her now. Be guided from the wilderness and transform enslavement into enlightenment. Epilogue. Documenting these events from my life has been a surreal experience, like a bad dream from which I've now awoken. Today, it's a totally different story. I didn't think about drink whatsoever. I don't fear it, avoid it, or have a healthy respect for it. Quite honestly, it's insignificant. What an amazing turnaround considering my history. Alcoholism is a mindset, the answer to which is a radical shift in consciousness. Through adherence to the philosophy outlined in this book, I achieved this shift. Today, my mind is a creative kingdom that gives rise to feelings I could never attain through the bottle. Ecstasy, euphoria, literally heaven. Now I'm free, liberated, and master of my own destiny. Every day is an adventure providing the opportunity to embrace the infinite possibilities that life has to offer. The loser that once spent his days on rat-infested railway embankments has given way to a therapist, author, and inspirational speaker. Since quitting alcohol, I have traveled the world on various quests for knowledge, attained a degree in psychology, trained in many different facets of therapy, and spoke to large audiences about my experiences. Can you believe it? That homeless pathetic down and out now teaches psychology and holds seminars and workshops throughout the country. People actually pay to hear what he has to say. From having no bus fare or bed to sleep in at night, he now stays in some of the most luxurious hotels in the world and drives a brand new Mercedes-Benz. Seriously, transforming the mental and emotional debris that gave rise to my destructive tendencies has become my wealth. Through the process, I realized my ultimate purpose in life: to evolve my understanding of the mind and spirit and relay my findings to others. I now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there isn't anything that lies beyond the realms of possibility. I can achieve anything I want in life. To date, I have penned a novel, Spirit of Adventure, Signposts from the Sacred Singularity, and you are currently reading my second book. In the future, I have plans to write a musical and various plays, write and record music, and continue to travel the world on my quest for knowledge. What an absolute joy it is to be alive. My sustained happiness and fulfillment stems from the knowing that I am a limitless, inexorable bundle of potential, capable of achieving anything I choose to focus on. And guess what? So are you. As for the family, well, our bond has grown in a beautiful way. The pain and sorrow that once was has been supplanted by laughter and joy. My parents and sister are my best friends today. Past experience served only to bring us much closer together. Then, of course, there's my extended family, a wealth of close and intimate friends with whom I intend to walk hand in hand for the remainder of life's journey. I'd like to extend that invitation to you, my friends. I am a privileged guy, someone who found a way out of the denizens of despair to a life beyond his wildest dreams. I'd like you to come and join me on the journey from alcoholic to alchemist and realize your dreams too. It's a wonderful adventure. Namaste, my friends. Paul. Steve's story. The best mind-altering drug is truth. Lily Tomlin. My drinking days seem like a lifetime ago now. Funny, isn't it? While you're in the throes of alcoholism, there seems no way out. And then you release the habit and find it almost impossible to remember. I suppose that's comforting for those of you reading these words. Can you imagine going through the day without thinking of a drink? I always thought it impossible. But I've been free of those thoughts for almost 20 years now. That's what this book has to offer you. Freedom. I sincerely hope my story helps, particularly those of you who are apt to blame the past for abusive drinking. If, like me, you had a turbulent childhood, you should be seeking to avail yourself of all those things you missed out on. Love, nurturance, encouragement, meaningful relationships, adventure, joy, and happiness. Instead of blaming the past. Holding the past responsible for current dilemmas simply results in further punishment, self-inflicted punishment. The unique philosophy outlined in the forthcoming pages taught me that it's never too late to have a happy childhood. The child within is forever present and never ages. The alcoholic to alchemist philosophy for optimal living will help you process unresolved issues and set you free from the bondage of the past, enabling you to embrace the infinite possibilities life has to offer. I was born in Liverpool, 1949, abandoned at birth. I was placed in the care of a local Salvation Army children's care home. 2 years later, I was fostered out to an elderly couple who were brother and sister. After an initial settling-in period, I found myself grateful for the stability of my new home provided. At last, I had a place to belong. Throughout school, however, I harbored an underlying sense of alienation from the other children. Wearing hand-me-down clothes that were more appropriate for someone 5 years my senior didn't help. Neither did being issued with a different colored meal ticket from the rest of the pupils. Advertising the fact that I was in receipt of free meals, it was highly embarrassing. As a result, I became a social outcast and the target of cruel ridicule. As my foster parents were much older than the parents of other children my age, they were unable to participate in their normal leisure activities associated with family life. So I spent much of my time away from school alone too. My introduction to drink came very early in life. Every fortnight, my foster parents received a delivery of Guinness and brandy from the local supermarket. When they weren't looking, I'd sneak the dregs from their glasses. I'll never forget the warm glow those dregs gave me. They lit up my insides. I was hooked from the very beginning. Though life wasn't perfect, it was the best it had ever been. I had a roof over my head. I was well fed, and I had the dregs to lift my mood. Then, just after my 8th birthday, another bombshell descended. My foster father started to sexually abuse me. Though it was wrong and obscene, and I hated him for it, I never told anyone for fear of reprisals. I didn't want to be removed from the only home I'd ever known. Rather than risk being taken back to the children's home, I decided to suffer in silence. I'd also heard of other kids who'd been abused, and no one believed them. Rather than being helped, they were punished. So I decided to keep it quiet. When things got tough, I hid some alcohol in my bedroom, and that used to relieve the pain a little. 2 years later, my dilemma deepened when my biological mother reappeared on the scene and demanded visiting rights. I was terrified. She was a total stranger. Nevertheless, she was granted rights. On visiting days, my social worker would come to collect me, but convinced my biological mother was going to take me away, I'd often run away and hide. Alas, my fears were never recognized. My mother's actions only served to reinforce the underlying sense of rejection that constantly dogged my life. She'd promised me the earth, presents, cinema, holidays, and not even bother showing up for the visits. At the time, I wished I'd never set eyes on her again. On reaching my teenage years, the sexual abuse stopped abruptly. I'd had enough and vowed never to carry it out again. The look in my eyes was enough for my foster father to back off. The subject was never again broached. I pushed it deep down into my unconscious and forgot all about it. Those experiences were not dead and buried, however. They were buried alive and would manifest as destructive tendencies in the years to come. The next few years were spent hanging around on street corners, drinking with some newfound friends, obliterating the memories of the past. We were rebels. As we put the world to rights, we justified our entitlement to get blitzed and let off steam. During this period, I met Carol, my future wife. She was the friend I'd always wanted. We did everything together. With her by my side, the next few years were okay. I managed to get a few jobs here and there and earn some money for us to go to the cinema and the beach. Still riddled with insecurities and low self-esteem, however, my drinking became progressively worse. I needed it to obliterate the past. Aged 18, I found work as a refuse collector. Drinking and the job went hand in hand. I drank at lunchtimes, then resumed for another heavy session after work. The more I drank, the more I wanted to drink. I'd never had enough. The downward spiral had started, and there was seemingly no basement. In 1970, my foster mother died, and it had a devastating effect on me. I drank relentlessly to obliterate the event from my mind. I didn't even remember getting married. And the kids coming along was a blur too. All 5 of them. Whilst Carol was at home tending to the kids, I'd be down some back alley, in a cemetery, or slouched in some other obscure place, getting out of my mind. My behavior had started to change radically. I'd always been a passive person, but now I was picking fights and arguments. My aggressive and unpredictable behavior got me barred from most of the pubs I frequented, which is why I drank in back alleys. My only claim to fame is that I never won a fight in my life. I always ended up on the receiving end. I was hospitalized on numerous occasions, bruised and battered after being beaten up or carrying other injuries sustained through drink. If I wasn't in hospital, I was usually in court or locked up for my own safety. My predisposition to wet myself, a phenomenon stemming from a turbulent childhood, escalated with drink. I'd often awaken from a drunken stupor to find my trousers saturated in urine. This lack of control escalated rapidly, to the point where I'd be in a bar or club and someone would point out that I'd wet or soiled myself. But I just didn't care. I lost all self-respect and dignity. Brawls, blackouts, family dysfunction, hospitals, court appearances, prison cells, and hard drinking were to be the story of my life for many years to come. Epilogue. I met Paul in August 1992, when I entered a 12-step treatment program. He was a group leader and had a couple of years sobriety under his belt at the time. From our first meeting, an inexplicable bond materialized. The best label I can give to it is that of soul brothers. 2 kindred spirits destined to share the trials and tribulations of life together. What transpired over the subsequent years was a wonderful, insightful adventure. I've never taken a drink in the 19 years I've known Paul, which is a wonderful testimony to the effectiveness of the philosophy outlined in this book. Today, I'm still employed in the same job I started all those years ago, that of refuse collector. I don't know how, but I must have been doing something right. Choosing to serve the public in such a humbling way keeps me grounded. Every time I remove rubbish from the streets, I'm reminded to keep my mind free of mental and emotional debris. The shift in conscience that transpired as a result of the self-development work I underwent with Paul is nothing short of phenomenal. Not only do I embrace life to the full today, but I also have a remarkable relationship with my 3 sons, 2 daughters, and now ex-wife Carol, after earning back their love and respect. Paul documented the psychological and spiritual techniques, as well as the interventions and practices we use to bring about the shift in consciousness needed to attain our true potential. During this work, he identified several important factors that had been overlooked by many treatment programs. New ways of being that not only alleviated alcoholism, but enabled people to reach their true potential. He always maintained that quitting drink was not enough. Alcohol is an escape vehicle used to flee from a life that's deemed unbearable. If we transformed our lives in such a way that they became exciting and alluring, there is no need for escape, and the vehicle becomes redundant. Paul was relentless in his mission. Not only did he travel the world talking to wise and enlightened people, he embarked on an in-depth exploration of his own inner domain. His commitment and dedication led to the revolutionary new philosophy you're now holding in your hands. You are a miracle waiting to happen. If you adhere to the ideas set out within this book, with equal fervor as that which you expended on the pursuit of alcohol, I guarantee your life will change beyond recognition. Believe me, it's a wonderful experience to see the light return to the eyes of your loved ones as they reunite with the person they lost to alcohol many years ago. It's a joy to get up of a morning and know that the day will be filled with purpose and meaning. It's a joy to be alive and embrace the infinite possibilities this world has to offer. Good luck, my friends. Steve. The 12-Step Philosophy for Optimal Living. Step 1. Admit having developed a destructive alcohol habit as a consequence of attempting to escape the curriculum of life. Step 2. Having crossed the abreactive threshold, we need to abandon the idea that alcohol provides a means of escape and supplant it with the following belief. The most effective way to escape our problems is to solve them. Step 3. Come to accept that the locus of the problem was a mind infected with fear, futility, guilt, and pain, the answer to which is a profound shift in consciousness. Step 4. Aspire to invoke a major shift in consciousness by allowing life to unfold from the wisdom of our indwelling divinity. Step 5. Live life consciously. Step 6. Develop and sustain self-love through regular communion with our inner child. Step 7. Make an inventory of all the kind and caring acts we've carried out throughout the course of our life. Or make an inventory of all the future kind and caring acts we intend to carry out. Step 8. Forgive and be free. Step 9. Identified our life's purpose. Step 10. Daily meditation. Step 11. Continuing development. This step is comprised of the following 5 components. 1. Stay on purpose and continue to utilize our unique talents to serve the highest good of all we encounter. 2. Commune with our indwelling divinity on a daily basis. 3. Frequently absorb inspirational literature with the objective of reprogramming our mind. 4. Regularly transmit our intentions. 5. Continually affirm positive statements. Finally, step 12. Having radically transformed our lives and actualized our optimal potential, we aspire to assist others in making the journey from alcoholic to alchemist.